What's up, gamers, and welcome back to more WotC-20. Today we have Spicy Escargot versus Kimono E-Girls. Pretty sure this is a Escargot deck versus some sort of Eevee Box based on opening actives. So we'll see how this goes. I am blind to this, just as you are watching the first time, so this is a live react. Looks like Escargot got the start, so we'll see how this unfolds. Definitely a new deck for the Eevee Box side, as far as I can tell. Fan club early on the Escargot side, and if this is an Eevee Box, I'm going to have a lot of cards and card text to look up and figure out attack names, variations, stuff like that. So early fan club, this can usually take a while on early turns. I assume we will see a Slugma. There is a Slugma. And that is the Fire Ring Slugma, so a good trapper in the active. I believe it's from N3. Should be Neo Revelation. And then a Neogenesis Cyndaquil. So this will be using some sort of a Typhlosion engine, I assume. And if an attack can get off, that Eevee is very vulnerable. It only has 30 HP. And it's a free retreater, so it can get away out of the active easily. It can also evolve if anything evolves, and that's one way to save it. Our current ruling is that the chain reaction can trigger the same turn it comes into play. Opponent's Pokemon evolution or your own evolution. Now, passing turn, it looks like we were not going to get an attack off on that Eevee, so it will definitely get away. Now we have a computer search getting rid of a bunch of energy. It looks like, I think that was a warp with a DCE for another fan club. So good early turn fan clubs for both sides. Seeing Cleffa on board is also going to help a lot here. And it goes down into an Eevee and a Brock's Vulpix. So this is looking like a Brock's Ninetales deck, centric to Eeveelutions. We'll have to see where that goes. I have no idea. Worth noting, the Energy Stadium came down from the Escargot side. We'll see if that gets anything back. Looks like it's only special energy in the bin, though, for Eevee Box. And Cleffa comes into active with a DCE. Now, when there is an Eevee, you would expect to see an Espeon if it's an Aquapolis Espeon. That DCE isn't a total waste of an attachment onto a Cleffa. It can go back to hand. And it looks like there was a Tails for Eek, so back to Escargot's side. Another Slugma comes down onto bench. And I think the tool on the first benched one is a Strength Charm. I know that gets run in this deck. A second Cleffa, and down comes E-Reader Quilava, but that will trigger both chain reactions on the Eevees. So now we get to see what comes out of the Eevee deck. And another fire attachment on Slugma. So powering up Slugma pretty early here. Another Strength Charm down onto the other Slugma. Still no energy committed to Cleffa, though, so comfortable hand assumedly on Escargot's side. Not a very big hand anymore at this point. Still no usage for an early Energy Stadium. It's also possible that there is no stadium being run on what I guess we can refer to as the Fox Box side of the table. And a Warp Point. Not a card we've seen a ton of play on. It's been seeing more experimentation, though. Warp Point is a switch, and then your opponent can do a switch. So it's not like Double Gust, it's more like Double Switch, but it's called Warp Point. And then into a Copycat. That makes sense why there was so much hand dumping earlier. Looks like a Copycat for only 4, though. Could be more. Usually a Copycat is a good answer to a successful Eek. And from those chain reactions, there is the assumed Aquapolis Espeon, as well as E-Reader Vaporeon. So while a Cleffa was knocked out of active, it does pull in Espeon because there were 2 Cleffas on bench from Escargot. They can go from Cleffa to Cleffa. And that will secure an Eek, which is a great way to have the board right now.
Yep.
If you're not familiar with that Vaporeon, like myself, it is from Skyridge. Hypno Splash is a DCE for 10 in sleep. Aqua Trick can move energy around on a coin flip, but we'll get there if we need to. It does 40, and there's also an ability on that Vaporeon. So while eking is going on here, we do see a Brock's Ninetales come down. Interesting to see what its primary target will be for Shapeshift. You won't be able to use any ability, so if you Shapeshift into like Espeon or Vaporeon on board, you wouldn't be able to use their abilities, but looks like we're going over some rules right now for Shapeshift. Super confusing card. So I would expect this to slow things down just a little bit. We have seen Brock's Ninetales get play here and there in shop. I was trying to see, it looked like maybe a retro energy from hand, bouncing a DCE with Espeon, which is as many times a turn as you want, into a warp energy onto the benched Cleffa. Then it comes in, free retreating with the Espeon, no retreat cost there, also no retreat cost on Cleffa. Good pivots between the two of them. And looks like we're going to roll for another Eek. And it is heads, so good Eeks on both sides setting up fairly well, so this will be a fun game state to get into mid-game here. We do have a Macargo on board. That will be the primary attacker for that deck. A second Macargo comes down and another Slugma, so there's a full bench, only one Quilava, which is kind of an important part of the engine, so I would have liked to see another Cyndaquil come down. 2 Macargo is already a lot, and there isn't a ton of energy on the Eevee Box side to really be much of a concern right now. But if you're not familiar with that Macargo, there were 2 Macargos printed in Skyridge. That is the Fire one with Eruption and Fire Stream. Water Weakness and 80 HP. And it looks like we already have a DCE on it with a Strength Charm. I can't quite see the third card. And an Oracle, so 2 cards will come out of the deck and placed on top for drawing next turn unless there is disruption from the Eevee Box side. Looks like there's a Darkness energy in the bin for Eevee Box.
I was thinking if you were going to Shaman, so
And while Oracle is being selected, a new Eek hand has been drawn.
Does this do something that I didn't realize?
Zooming in, it does look like...
Top 2.
I think that's a fire energy on the Macargo with the DCE as well. A little hard to tell. Now, one thing that Oracle can be used here for is if you put a fire energy on top of your deck and then attack with Macargo, each player, if Eruption is the attack for DCE, each player would discard the top card of their deck, and it would do 20 plus 20 more for each fire card discarded that way. So DCE for 40 if you can Oracle through the setup. And then because you're discarding the top card of your deck, you can guarantee what you also draw next turn because Oracle puts 2. So very cool synergy. And the second attack on Macargo is Fire Stream. But we'll get into that in a second. Looks like a Trader came down.
Okay.
And straight into a Jolteon. So Ninetales is being used for the Eeveelutions. It doesn't look like they're supporting anything else that we've seen yet.
That is a very...
That is a Skyridge Jolteon. Now it has a lightning attach.
I don't know how I didn't cook it before. Like, you can
Curious energy base here. I know there's a DCE in hand. A darkness energy. I'm not sure what that would leverage on the Eevee Box side of things. Probably just good as a pseudo plus power. If you can put it down, afford the damage to self, and then bounce it with Espeon, that could just be the purpose of it. Maybe there's no dark type Pokemon in this deck. We will see.
This one?
Yep.
And a Gust Up on the Macargo with no energy. That's going to be tough with the retreat cost of 3. Also worth noting that Fire Stream on Macargo does 60 damage with Strength Charm. That puts a few of these Eeveelutions at risk here. And a flip for heads. Let's see. So that would have been the Jolteon attack.
Yep. Can't attack, can't retreat.
gonna have a million tabs pulled up by the end of this to make sure I get all these attack names right.
Cargo. Fire here.
Yeah, what's coming down from hand? Another fire energy. All right, so we have one Magcargo fully powered up. Wouldn't be bad to see another warp point here for sure. That Jolteon on the opposing side did use Thunder Shock, so it was 10 damage, and then flip for paralysis. I guess they're using a coin to denote paralysis instead of card rotation.
I just have an extra coin.
Worth noting, though, warp point would get a paralyzed active out of active.
That's paralyzed, that's confused, that's asleep.
I guess they're going over that right now.
Yeah.
All I know is that if the card is upside down, it's confusion.
I remember as a little kid, I used to like actually try to remember that. I will return this word.
So as I was saying before, Fire Stream plus a Strength Charm would one-shot that Jolteon. It looks like the Vaporeon... Let's see... also has 70 HP.
Spark, it does 10 damage to each.
But the Espeon has 80, and that 70 to 80 jump is a big deal.
Yeah. So these two take 20 because of the Strength Charm, and Magcargo takes 50.
And it looks like this will be the second Jolteon attack, based on where the dice are going.
That's it.
So Thunder Spark, Lightning in a DCE, or Lightning in 2 colorless does 40 to active, and then 10 damage to each bench Pokemon with at least 1 energy attached. And that includes your own as well as your opponent's, but here with Espeon on the board, you can bounce that energy, keep damage off of your own bench. Really relying on energy coming up and down. So not the kind of deck to stick a ton on board like Magcargo here. But Magcargo has some bench damage of its own up its sleeve. So Fire Stream, if you do discard a fire energy attached to Magcargo, well, you have to use the attack in general, but if your opponent has any benched Pokemon, it does 10 to each of them. Unconditional. Based on our current rulings, that is boosted by Strength Charm. So that Magcargo is super stuck inactive, it looks like.
Psychic.
And a Psychic comes down onto Espeon.
Item Finder.
And we're going to Item Finder down a Goldberry, another Darkness Energy, take a Strength Charm. That makes sense. Don't want to damage the Espeon if you don't have to.
I'm doing 20 to myself.
Strength Charm for Jolteon will give the KO with Thunder Shock.
Oh, it does it to yours.
So I believe Magcargo has 80 HP. We have 60 on it already.
20 here, 20 here.
Oh no, it is using Strength Charm for the other attack. And that takes out a Cleffa too, so Thunder Spark doing a lot of damage. Again, the way we rule Strength Charm is that because it's doing 10 to each bench Pokemon, that is boosted by Strength Charm, so Thunder Spark did 50 to active, and then 20 all around. Does tag 20 to the Espeon. Keep an eye on that. If any gusts come down from the Magcargo side, that could take the Espeon out, along with the attachment that was just invested in it. So that would be a big deal. Cleffa up for now. I would expect to see that Magcargo come in.
Yeah, alright, I'm gonna retreat.
Looks like we have 2 cards in hand on the Magcargo side, and here comes a fully powered Magcargo. Now remember, we still only have a Quilava on the bench, so Typhlosion isn't around to keep that fire energy moving. Hit it tails on the Energy Stadium.
And 20 to everything on the bench.
We'll keep an eye on that for both sides. And Strength Charm is discarding along with a fire energy, so that will be Fire Stream for a knockout. And then 20 damage across the bench, putting Cleffa in the danger zone. 20 on Vaporeon, 40 on Espeon. So that's a lot of energy off the board as far as Eevee Box is concerned. The computer search here is going to see a Dark Espeon and a Warp discarded. Dark Espeon sees some splash play every now and then. Fun attacks on it. And what was grabbed? I assume an Oak or Town V grabbed off of the computer search, I think. Got to get all those Eeveelutions back in the deck, as well as the Brock's line. And what I can only assume is a very small amount of lightning energy for the deck as a whole. And we might see that psychic energy bounce off of Espeon, put onto Cleffa, eke while you can. Looks like hands are pretty thin right now. Curious about the energy base in Eevee Box. If there is something like a water energy, technically the Eeveelutions have, some of them have self-healing, so if you attach a proper energy type, it would heal a special condition. Not sure if the deck has any synergies around that. Still nice as an option. And there's the Oak, so the full 7 after Town Ving, order matters there. And I do think I see an energy removal, probably a water energy as well. And removing a fire energy from the benched Magcargo, not the active, so really banking on Typhlosion not showing up, and also banking on just, you know, a small hand, hopefully no energy. And Espeon's going to come in, likely to Damage Blast here. That will allow for quite a few coin flips. Can't really read the die on Magcargo. I think it's 40. But if you're unfamiliar with Damage Blast from Espeon, you flip a number of coins equal to the number of damage counters on the defending Pokemon, and then it does 30 plus 10 for each additional heads. Looks like it was at 40, did not need much more damage. That Magcargo is down. So 3 prizes already taken on the Eevee Box side. Magcargo feels behind in prizing, but this has also felt back and forth. If that Espeon goes down, it's hard to see Eevee Box stabilizing very easily. Bench setup is at least okay for Magcargo.
Fire on Cleffa.
And a very nice Lugia sweatshirt from the Game Boy Color era. Alright, looks like we are going to Eek against Espeon. And I assume that will mean Typhlosion will come out at some point. A Trader comes out, putting a Cleffa in. Let's see what they pull out here. I assume it's going to be a basic of some sort. Either a Vulpix, maybe another Cleffa even, and instead the Eevee. So with Eevee down, you can assume that there is also the expectation that either Cyndaquil or Quilava could evolve next turn. Assuming type matchup, that Vaporeon is nice to have. You can see a Cyclone in hand, but with 2 Cleffas still on board for Magcargo. It looks like that was an L or that was an Oak. Discarded a bunch of energy off of that. Seeing lots of darkness energy. Still trying to figure that one out. Technically, you could throw a darkness energy onto an Eevee and take out a Cleffa and almost kill the Eevee entirely, but not quite.
Attempt to Damage Blast.
Looks like we're just going for a Damage Blast KO and another head, so good momentum on Eevee Box side. They did get a Vulpix down. The decks don't look too thin on either side. Trying to figure out what to put up. It's just going to be Cleffa. Yeah, that Magcargo doesn't have enough energy after that energy removal. Okay. Energy removal having some synergy with Aqua Trick, but no clear way to deal 40, so the energy on Espeon is safe. Espeon can keep taking out Cleffa. If things get dire, you can always bounce the DCE to bring Vaporeon in for a type advantage. And dealing 80 to Magcargo is a sweet spot right now.
Can I take a look at your bin? Sure.
We'll see if people remember to use Energy Stadium this match. I feel like every time there's a game with Energy Stadium, we do not see that leveraged as often as it could be. Doing some bin checks here. Unclear if they're checking for trainer count or Eevee lines maybe. We have full grips on both sides, it looks like. Or nearly full grips, considering the Vulpix came down. Alright, slow power up on the Magcargo. Pretty sure there are 2 fire energy hiding under it there. Can't quite see. Who's bumping the camera? Just not a lot of energy for Magcargo right now. And an Oracle comes down. Hard to imagine what the 2 cards on top will be. If the intention is to draw both of them, that will take a while. I assume you would Oracle and then not want to Eek. Now, if you do have an attach in hand, and it is a big enough hand, now we are bringing up the Magcargo. Energy Stadium heads, that's a big deal. So if Oracle did put a fire energy on top, Eruption will take out the Espeon.
Oh, that is a big. All right.
Wow, and the other Aquapolis Espeon, I assume there's only 2 in this in the Eevee Box deck, gets discarded off the top, so no energy bouncing now. Just when you thought that DCE and Psychic Energy was safe on active, Magcargo pulled out 40 damage. So evolving into Brock's Ninetales, we'll hit Chain Reaction. Very quick grab for the Skyridge Jolteon. And it looks like there's 20 damage on the Magcargo inactive. Alright, I was wondering if this was going to come back. There is Dark Espeon, 60 HP and a free retreater, so not as bulky as the other Eeveelutions. For 1 energy, it can gouge for 10, and then on flip, it's either 20 or 10, depending on heads or tails. And then Psy Splash will deal 10 to each Pokemon on the opponent's side for each energy attached to it. No weakness or resistance. So Psy Splash is a cool attack for a Psychic and a DCE. Looks like we're going to go straight for the KO. Super effective damage from that Vaporeon, playing the type matchup here. Aqua Trick, its ability, don't think is going to matter here.
I'm not afraid to evolve it anymore.
I didn't catch if there was a heads flip on it or not. But I assume that effect would matter. But 40 to 80 super effective.
This deck's fun.
It's looking really good for Eevee Box now. That Vaporeon isn't going to take 50 damage very easily, and Magcargos have been taken off the board. Haven't seen a single Typhlosion all game yet. Unsure if they're prized, unsure if they're in the deck. Late comp search here for a Strength Charm and a Cyndaquil into the bin. We'll see what gets pulled out. I assume it'll be a Typhlosion, hopefully between Energy Stadium and its own ability. We'll see some ramping. Also, just a good time for some deck checking, see what's left, see what's prized. You could probably figure it out by now based on how long the game's been going on. And we see it's a comp search into a Town V.
Pretty sure that needs to happen. Let me just take a look.
I have to imagine we'll see the Magcargo line go back in, but with Vaporeon up right now, that is a big problem with not an obvious solution in front right now. Do you see Slugma? 2 Slugma. 3 Slugma. Well, I guess if your main attacker is in the bin, there's nothing better that you can really Town V for than a 3-2 line of it.
1, 2.
Now the Quilava on bench is from Expedition. It can use a Super Singe attack for 20 for a fire energy and a colorless. Coin flip for burn, otherwise it's triple colorless for a 30 damage tackle.
Yeah.
Not really good enough for handling that Vaporeon, and Vaporeon will take a prize back. There's also only one prize remaining or needed for the Eevee Box sides. We'll see how long this drags out.
Yeah, I just need to find a way to deal with that. We will see. I haven't played an energy yet. I'm gonna do my energy stadium.
And we do see an Energy Stadium heads flip. So at this point, you have to be thinking about where Typhlosion is. It is the E-Reader Typhlosion with the heat up ability for the engine. If Super Singe can get powered up, and now you see the DCE come down onto Quilava, Super Singe on Typhlosion will do 50. That will be enough to take out Vaporeon. And now we see an Elm. I think the problem, though, for heat up to work, you need to count the total number of energy attached to all of your Pokemon and all of your opponent's Pokemon. And it's energy cards, so DCE only counts as 1. And if the opponent has more total energy cards attached, you can grab a fire energy out of your deck and attach it to a benched Pokemon, not your active. So a lot of ifs there. But attaching that DCE will not allow heat up to work this turn. So we're probably going to see a baby stall. See if we can get into Super Singe, which, if you haven't heard of it, you flip a coin for a burn, otherwise it's 50 damage for 2 fire and 2 colorless. So there we go, talking all about a card that's not even on board right now, but worth noting, Typhlosion, despite the water weakness, has 100 HP, would be able to survive Aqua Trick from Vaporeon, and it wouldn't necessarily have energy moved off of it by Aqua Trick, because that is also a coin flip. Lots of coin flips in WotC.
Gotta really rely on Cleffa here.
Looks like it is a baby stall and a pass.
Or, I guess, Cleffa in the absence of Dust.
To be fair, I did roll like 5 heads in a row.
So game on the line if we do see a heads. Another Eevee comes down as an insurance policy.
Stadium.
And a lightning energy, so that would allow heat up to work now. Looked like it tails on Energy Stadium, and that looks like a heads for games. So final prize was a fire energy. Very cool decks. I had to look up a lot of cards for that one. But thank you for watching. Drop a comment, tell us what you think, and we will catch you next time.
So, I needed
Typhlosion, right?
well, even if I would have got Typhlosion though, because we were even on energy, I wouldn't have been able to do its energy ramp. And if I would have gotten,
oh wow, yeah.
yeah, if I would have gotten the other Typhlosion,
The recharge one?
yeah, I could have moved it here. But then still, I would have had to basically get both Typhlosions in the Elm to be able to knock out that Vaporeon.
Yeah, so the Pokemon base is just so wild.